5 Questions with LeRoy Butler. Now, here's Tom Silverstein.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the virtual edition of 5 Questions with LeRoy Butler. How's it going? You there for real?
Yeah, I know, right? It's, you know what? A lot of people in church were talking about, do you know football season starts this Thursday? I think a lot of people forgot about that with no preseason games and things of that nature. But yeah, it's getting close enough. And now it's about time to, get your roster set and you have to clue me in on all these rules because I know you guys couldn't report who was on the depth chart. I mean, the only concerning thing to me is the offensive line, especially with the Minnesota Vikings signing that one young man whose name I would not try and pronounce.
Yeah. Hey, can I just say this? People are tired of me hearing about this, but I guarantee you that back in the day, your day, Mike Holmgren and Ron Wolf didn't care who was listed in first team, second team, if the other team knew. They were so confident they were going to win that, I don't think they really cared that much. Do you?
Well, that's true. That's facts. I think, remember, a lot of people don't know, but Bruce Wilkinson, he came over. Ron Cox came over from the Bears to the Super Bowl. And, we had Don Beebe, we had all these guys, and it was plug and play because they felt like the system works. Whatever the system is, West Coast style offense, defense, with kind of a quarters type defense, every now and then blitz a lot of 8-man front stuff. It is what it is. And most of these coaches know each other. There's nothing you can surprise.
Yeah. It's a mentality too, that you're not scared. You're not so paranoid that you think something as little as a position change is going to be the difference in the game. And, you should be confident that you can switch somebody over to right tackle if you've got an injury or whatever. Anyway, that's my little 2 cents.
Right.
I thought maybe you would.
Element of surprise at some point. Some teams don't want to do that. They think it's to their advantage.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway, let's talk about the cutdowns before we get to the Vikings game. So with these cutdowns, I didn't, if you're talking about surprises, I don't think there were any big drastic ones. I was a little bit surprised by Kumaro, and I was a little bit surprised by Alex Light, the left tackle, but I wasn't blown away. It's not like I didn't think those guys could be cut. Were there any surprises in your mind?
Well, I thought that Dexter Williams, they wanted to develop him further, but I guess they can't keep a lot of running backs because they may list Josiah, the tight end, they may list him as a fullback. You never know. The Alex Light, anytime you have a lineman with some kind of experience, you want to keep him around. Maybe they will on a practice squad. You don't know if he's eligible for that yet. But at this particular time, I think they wanted to move on from maybe Kumaro because he's had an opportunity to break into the lineup. He hasn't had a chance to do that. So they found they want more athletes in their wide receiver position. But you thought he would fit because his height, size, blocking ability, everything you needed. And I thought Aaron Rodgers was very fond of him. So I guess that was a surprise to the local people in Wisconsin. But nationally, you're probably right. I think all the people who did their picks pretty much got it right.
I think what people, and yourself included, couldn't see was Malik Taylor and what kind of camp that kid had. This is a guy with pretty decent speed. He's a very poor man, Sterling Sharp. He's not the dynamic guy that Sterling Sharp was, but he's 6'1", 220. He's catches everything that's thrown to him, and he can be a devastating blocker in their run game, which they really count on. And the kid he came so far in camp. He was Tim Boyle's favorite receiver, and Boyle just kept, anytime he needed a completion, he threw it to him. And that's how you move up the ranks, and that's what he did. He outperformed Kumaro.
I think a lot of fans don't want that guy to be the Binghamton kid from Canada. They thought he was going to be this breakout player. But anytime you bring a a young man from another organization to yours, a different scenery, Tom, really helps you, especially when you're catching, passes from, Aaron Rodgers or even Tim Boyle or even Jordan Love. It just gives you something to really come into a group that if he can flourish like Alan Lazard did last year, you never know, he may get a lot of playing time.
Yeah, the other thing is he didn't face Jair Alexander or Kevin King in the CFL, and that becomes a whole different ball of wax when you've got to beat guys like that off the line of scrimmage. So you have to be really good in your technique, and you have to read the coverages. And I think Reggie Begelton still has a chance. He's on the practice squad.
Right.
So, he just needs to get used to anybody caught 110 passes or whatever it was, is still got to have some talent. And I think they'll keep looking at him.
Yeah, that's what the practice roster is for, to keep developing.
Right, and so that leads me into your question about the rules.
Yeah.
So usually you have 10 practice squad guys. This year they expanded it to 16.
Okay.
And they opened it to players of any experience. Usually if you had, I think it was 3 years of accrued seasons, you could not be on the practice squad. And there were other instances too. Now, anybody, if they cut Kenny Clark tomorrow, they could put him on the practice squad. So
that's why I thought Alex Light can still go over there and still keep developing, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And they could have put Kumaro on there if they wanted to.
Right.
So then each week on Tuesday, you can protect 4 of those practice squads guys.
Okay.
In other words, no other team can pick them up at that point and put them on their roster, but just 4 of the 16.
Right.
Then when you get to game day, you can activate 2 of those practice squad guys. One has to be, you have to have at least 8 offensive linemen. And those 2 guys become active, and you can put them on the game day roster if you want.
Oh, nice.
The following day, those 2 practice squad guys go back to the practice squad. So it's sort of like giving you some protection in case some guys test positive for COVID and all of a sudden, you're caught short. That's the idea there. But it does, if you have injuries and things, it gives you some advantages,
Yeah, I wonder how they get paid as far as if you're on the roster, or do you stay with because there's a big jump in pay for a practice squad if you're on the active roster.
If you get called up to the active roster that week, you get paid the minimum NFL salary, not the practice squad salary. And there is a big difference, Also with injured reserve, you can put as many guys on injured reserve as you want, and all of them are eligible to return after 3 weeks.
Really?
So that's a huge thing. That's why we saw them put Kamal Martin, the inside linebacker, on injured reserve. They put Kabian Ento, the corner, on injured reserve. They'll be back in 3 weeks. They both underwent surgery. That's good timing,
Yeah, because I was thinking about Kamal Martin because he was having such a pretty good camp, and it is kind of hard to see these guys because you can't see them. We had to rely on reporters like you to give us some kind of context based on what the team is releasing, because you like to see a guy in practice or in a preseason game. You really couldn't do that. So by him, it's going to be at least 6 weeks if they're not stopping the run and he has an opportunity, after 6 or 7 weeks, that'd be good to know they can bring him up.
Yeah, to compare Kamal Martin, I thought he's a little bit like Niall Diggs, kind of remind me a little bit of that type of a player, maybe a little more physical than Niall Diggs, but tall, good wingspan, could drop into coverage, that type of a player.
Oh, good.
I will tell you that, though, they're in trouble at that position without him. I don't know what the situation is with Oren Burks. He didn't practice much on Monday, and they have not said what his injury is. either he's injured or they're just so down on him that he's just going to play special teams because he wasn't working with the ones. So I don't know. That's going to be, given the Vikings' desire to run the ball, that's going to be an interesting matchup there.
No question the Vikings are going to take the San Francisco tape and feel like they could exploit it. That's why, Kurtz they're going to be leaning heavily upon him to not only make the calls, get everybody lined up, but get in those gaps and stop the run, especially if they want to play this system where Sullivan is down in the box with Kurtz. I mean, whenever these wide receivers get in these 3 wide receiver sets, they think you're going to be in your dime and nickel, so they're just going to run the football. But, one thing back in the 90s we did to change it up a lot of time, we stayed in our base defense, and I would just come down on the third receiver, and then we can keep the integrity of our defense to stop the run. But when you're a 3-4 defense, you could do that when you have so many linebackers. But you got to make sure you have a great nose guard that can control the line of scrimmage. And you also have to have disciplined guys for play action. Because if some guy bites on a play action in 3-4, it's a huge gap in that slot area. And that can be pretty difficult to cover. So I think, again, Minnesota is what they're going to do what they've always done with Dalvin Cook. They're going to try to get him going early on that surface, try to take pressure off of Kirk Cousins. But see, that's the thing about it. Stephon Diggs is gone. They still got one of the top wide receivers. They got Jefferson, a rookie. Got again Adam Thielen. Lock him up with one of your corners and you stack that line and force Kirk Cousins to beat you, because just a nightmare knowing that a quarterback didn't throw the ball but 8 times in the championship game. That's something to be concerned about. Yeah. And I know the Packers said it was lineup issues, guys getting in gaps or whatever, but you got to make sure these quarterbacks put some pressure on them to make the right checks, and stopping the run would be paramount.
I agree with you 100%. Even if they come out with 4 wides, you got to figure out a way to play your base defense and stop the run, because then you want to get Kirk Cousins to third down. Then you can, unleash Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark after him. And you don't necessarily have to blitz. You can really pressure him. If they're running the ball well, then his play action is really good. Kirk Cousins is a good play action quarterback. So you're 100% right. That'll be interesting to see how they play that come Sunday.
Yeah, I just think because it's a copycat league, Tom. Other teams are going to see that. Even like a team like Detroit is going to try to run the ball. I mean, they drafted that kid from Georgia. They just want to run the football. But if the Packers can force these quarterbacks into, like you said, third down or second and long, now you can go after the quarterback. And now, a guy I hope that can contribute on defense would be Rashawn Gary. I picked him on pretty much on defense to be the guy to watch out for. And on offense, it was Robert Tonyan. You got to get something out of these guys, especially when you're playing this kind of COVID atmosphere. You never know who's going to be available. You have to operate like that each week.
So Minnesota is running, they've hired Gary Kubiak to run their offense. And Gary Kubiak is a disciple of Mike Shanahan and the Alex Gibbs style of running, where they run that wide zone and they try to cut you and put you on the ground. What would be your advice? You were on the rough side of that in a Super Bowl where they were just dropping guys. What would be your advice to Packer guys up front on how to handle that?
You got to penetrate. You got to penetrate vertically. You can't go side, east to west. You can't do it because the running back one cut and he is gone. You have to penetrate, because every time you penetrate, they'll put their hands on your hip instead of on your knee or your thigh. Once they get on the thigh or the knee area, you're going to feel that pressure. It's going to make you, pretty much you can't cut back. But if you're penetrating, and then you'll be able to get some pressure off of play action, because play action is all predicated on that run action. And a lot of things they did was a lot of eye back. Minnesota would have a fullback in there, and maybe they'll use Kyle Rudolph just as something looked like a fullback, and run a lot of play action, dump the ball over the middle. But that offense is something that's very efficient if they get 5 to 6 yards on first down time. That's when the playbook opens up. But if you can stop them with 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 11, then you really got that offense where you want them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So let's flip to the Packers offense, and let's start with the offensive line. We know that Billy Turner is a question mark at right tackle, and they have several options there. I think the most likely would be, Rick Wagner if he were healthy. And from what I kept seeing in practice, he's got a left elbow injury. He's wearing a brace on it. I don't know if he has enough strength in that arm right now. He's practicing, but I don't know if they trust that arm. So that means, what do? I think the two options are you move either Lane Taylor out there or you move Elton Jenkins out there. What would you do?
Well, seeing that Patrick is a guy, Lucas Patrick, they really like him. They could put him at guard. He could play guard or center, and they couldn't put Lane Taylor, who's had a pretty good camp. They could put him at right tackle. Now, right tackle isn't as dynamic as a left tackle, but you have to understand that you're going to be covering Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, which the Bears twice, and you're going to do Minnesota the first game, Daniel Hunter, and the other young man from Jacksonville that they traded for twice. That's some of the best rushes you're going to see all year. So with that being said, you're going to see a lot of screens and draws. That's why they have so many tight ends. They're going to do a lot of max protection. These guys will chip before they go out, because if you cannot protect Aaron Rodgers, then you really can't get into your offense. But one thing about it, Aaron Jones, they're going to run the football away from certain guys and they're going to cut back. So you got to keep these linemen thinking to help the offensive linemen out. Otherwise, it does get to, who's on first this week. You rather players, and speaking from a player's point of view, players would like to know, what's my role? Just like a pitcher. I want to know what's my fifth day. When am I going to pitch ahead of time so I can get my mind right? I mean, it'd be tough to come on Wednesday and say, you're the starting right tackle when you were the left guard. It's different terminology. It's different, pass sets. Maybe you'll kick step with your left foot, but now you got kick step with your right foot. It's a lot goes into that. So, but to know the scene, to know the scheme, I think they'll be okay there with the second year with Matt LaFleur's system. But it's something you definitely have to do with backs. So you may see Jamal Williams play a lot. He's one of your best, running backs as far as protection. You may see split backs for both of these guys. They got to get some kind of protection because they got two new cornerbacks, Tom. And Davante Adams is salivating. That's why I took him in my fantasy league. He's going to put up huge numbers, okay?
Yeah.
Because Xavier Rhodes is not there anymore. Trey Waynes is not there anymore. So they have new guys back there.
Mackenzie Alexander is not there anymore.
Right. They got to take it.
They're down to Mike Hughes, who is really a slot corner. He's listed as one of their starters. I don't know if he'll start or not. But and then they've got Holton Hill and Jeff Gladney. I mean, those are not household names. So you're right. There's some opportunity there.
Absolutely.
So, but on the other hand, everything we've seen is Matt LaFleur wants to run the ball. And, Aaron Jones has had some success in that building. How much do you give it to him?
Yeah, I really like if they can use Tyler Irvin as well in the slot, but they don't really necessarily have a slot receiver, so they can use some jet sweeps with him and Aaron Jones together. I see Aaron Jones getting another, 15 to 19 touchdown year. You really got to establish that run, But the one thing about Aaron Rodgers, I would say last year was some of his best ball handling I've seen in a long time. So he's going to do a lot of play action, a lot of carry, a lot of his fakes out to make the backside defensive end have to think. You're going to see a lot of screens and draws. But then you may see A.J. Dillon come in there in the fourth quarter, Tom, when no one really wants to tackle anymore anyway. If they get the lead in the fourth quarter, you can see them starting to chip away at those minutes over and over again. And next thing you know, it'll work out to something that the Packers want, and that would be a victory.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, lastly, before we get to your prediction, what do you think the level of play is going to be like with 3 weeks of training camp and no off-season practices? What do you think we're going to see?
I think the one thing you could go off of is what the NBA, it was a little sloppy at times, but some teams did very well. I mean, guys this is something unprecedented planned in a pandemic. So it's going to be some adjustments there. That's why they had the opt-out period. That's what Funches opt out. I think the first couple weeks, it's going to be maybe a little hesitant and tackling, get used to the rules. But after like week 3, I think it'll go back to normal. Because guys, once you're in that stadium, you'll realize there's no fans. And you'll realize the only fan that you have is your teammate in the sideline. That's why the NBA, when these guys dunk or shoot a shot, you get more to cheerleading from your sideline. You'll see a more animated sideline. Guys will be very excited. Of course, they won't be able to do the leap, but the one thing you get is from your teammates giving you a high five. That means all the world to it. But I will say this, though, Tom, you must get out to a fast start in this kind of climate because you never know what can happen each week. So if you can get out to a good start, 4-2, 5-1, or even 6-0, well, obviously can't do none of that if you don't win the first game. But the team that gets out to the best start puts pressure on everybody, especially with the playoffs being expanded.
Do you expect the Packers to make a gesture pregame in relation to the social justice movement?
I do. I really do, because I think they understand that, the thing that happened with Jacob Blake happened right in their backyard. And I think they want people to understand that they're playing a game, but they also need to, call attention as much as possible to the racial injustices every day, because they also understand that you may lose a fan or two behind it, but some things are bigger than football. And I think if you're going to play in a pandemic, you should be able to do whatever you want to do, especially if it's positive. This is something peaceful. No one, no player is for looting, violence. They condemn all that stuff, but they also want to have free, to express how they feel, what's going on in their cities back home. And we're not broke up into Democratic cities or Republican cities. We're the United States of America. So each team is going to do something different. But I think the Green Bay Packers, seeing that the Jacob Blake, situation just happened in their backyard, and the George Floyd thing happened in Minnesota, these two teams are going to have heavy hearts, because those are the two most polarizing things that just happened this offseason for 2020. It's been just a terrible year. So with Minnesota and the Vikings playing, I think it's only fitting that these two teams play to kick us off, for a wonderful season. I know they got a game on Thursday, but, the Packers and this rivalry, if you want to go to the Super Bowl, if you're in Minnesota, you must beat the Packers. And if you want to win the Super Bowl or go to a Super Bowl, you must beat the Minnesota Vikings.
It'd be interesting if they did something together with the Vikings, given they're from two different states. I don't know that would happen, but it would be interesting. Okay, let's get to your prediction. What are you thinking?
Minnesota lost too many guys. Everson Griffin. I mean, I know they still got Harrison Smith, one of the top safeties, but they lost too many guys on that defense. I feel like they can beat the Packers. The Packers are a 13-3 team, whether you believe it or not. The Packers are a team that ran the ball well, that threw the ball well, didn't turn the ball over. I think the Packers will win 28-17. And I think more than anything, I think you'll start to see guys start to come into their own. The Jair Alexanders, and you also should see the Kevin Kings, these guys stepping up, playing man-to-man with no help. You guys go stop the run. I look for Zadarius Smith to do like he's always done ever since he's been in that uniform, being a leader. I look for Mercedes Lewis to get his guys on point, and I also look for Aaron Rodgers to do like he's always done since he's been in a Green Bay Packer uniform, that's will his team to victory. So I see the Packers winning 28-17.
And who do you see winning the division?
Say again, I'm sorry.
Who do you see winning the division?
Well, the Packers, I think they win the division. I think Chicago upgraded with Robert Quinn, so they got back to defense, but they still got Mitch Trubisky there. him and Nick Folty kind of working that thing out at quarterback. The Packers are the only team that seem to be more stable. They didn't, they got most of the core players back, although Brian Bulaga is going to hurt. But they're going to have to manage that situation. When anytime Aaron Rodgers is playing, he's going to be the favorite in that division. He's the best quarterback in the North. And I think for the most part, Matt LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the North. So I think, and he was last year. So listen, the only way the Packers, for some foreseen something that we haven't seen or talk about each week on 5 Questions that happens, an injury, a guy going into protocol or something like that. If it stays true to form, they'll win between 10 and 12 games and they'll win the division. Once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. But again, as long as you have Aaron Rodgers, you're one of the 6 or 7 teams that legitimately have a chance at going to a Super Bowl.
Okay, there you have it. Great. Well, it was fun to do week 1, and
yes.
We will be back again. We will be trying to get an X's and O's if we can figure it out. Bill's working on it, and hopefully we'll have it, next week or the week after that.
Yeah, and I want to thank Vinny's Sausage Company for helping me develop my new brat that's coming soon. I got you and Bill some too in the next couple of weeks, so I'll let you know where you can pick those up. Also want to thank Ivanhoe's Pub and Eatery in Racine, well, you can say Mount Pleasant, Racine area. Thank you so much for sponsoring this. And again, Tom and Bill, I appreciate you guys every week. This is a lot of fun. I think the fans are going to really enjoy it.
Yep, for sure. Until next week, we'll see ya.
Bye-bye.